She was left on her wedding day, until her boss whispered, "Pretend I'm your fiancé." Picture this, you're standing in a wedding dress that cost more than your car, 200 guests staring at you with pity in their eyes, and your phone keeps buzzing with texts from your fiancé saying he can't go through with it. Your mother's crying. Your bridesmaids don't know where to look. And then, your boss, the man you've secretly been in love with for 3 years, walks through those church doors, takes your trembling hand, and whispers 6 words that will change everything. Pretend I'm your fiancé. Trust me. Would you say yes? Before we dive into this incredible story, if you're new here, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. And please, please, stay until the end because what happens will absolutely blow your mind. To my returning viewers, welcome back. You know I always bring you the most emotional, heart-stopping stories, and today's is no exception. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. Jannie M. Markley had exactly 14 minutes before her life was supposed to change forever. She sat in the bridal suite of St. Augustine's Chapel in Charleston, South Carolina, staring at her reflection in the gilt-edged mirror. The dress was perfect, ivory silk with delicate lace sleeves, exactly what she'd dreamed of since she was a little girl playing dress-up in her grandmother's attic. Her dark skin glowed against the soft white fabric, and her natural curls had been styled into an elegant updo with small white flowers woven throughout. She looked like a bride. She felt like she was drowning. "You okay, Jannie?" Her best friend and maid of honor, Camille, adjusted the train of the dress, her expression concerned. "You've been quiet all morning." Jannie forced a smile. "Just nervous. Normal wedding day jitters, right?" But it wasn't normal. Nothing about this felt normal. Her phone buzzed for the 3rd time in 5 minutes. She'd been ignoring it. Brides weren't supposed to be on their phones right before walking down the aisle. But something cold settled in her stomach, a whisper of intuition that made her fingers shake as she reached for it. "Derek, we need to talk. Now." "Derek, I can't do this, Jannie." "Derek, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I can't marry you." The phone slipped from her hand, clattering onto the antique vanity. 3 years. 3 years of her life with Derek Paulson, the man everyone said was perfect for her. Stable job in finance. Good family. Wanted the same things she wanted. Except apparently, he didn't want her. "Jannie." Camille's voice seemed to come from very far away. "Jannie, what's wrong? You look like you're going to be sick." She couldn't breathe. The dress that had felt so perfect moments ago now felt like it was suffocating her. 200 guests were sitting in that chapel. Her mother had spent months planning this day. Her father had already walked to the front of the church, waiting to escort her down the aisle. And her fiancé had just dumped her via text message. "He's not coming," Jannie whispered. The words felt thick in her mouth, like she was speaking through water. "Derek's not coming." The room exploded into chaos. Camille grabbed the phone, her eyes widening as she read the messages. The other bridesmaids started talking all at once, their voices rising in pitch and volume. Someone mentioned calling Derek's mother. Someone else suggested checking the hospital. Maybe he'd been in an accident? But Jannie knew the truth. Derek hadn't been in an accident. He'd simply decided, with 14 minutes, no, now 12 minutes, to spare, that he didn't love her enough to show up. Her mother burst into the room, still elegant in her emerald green dress, her expression shifting from joy to confusion to horror in the span of seconds as she took in the scene. "Baby, what's happening? People are asking questions." "Your daddy's waiting." "He's not coming, Ma." Jannie's voice cracked on the word. She never called her mother Ma unless she was hurting. "Derek texted. He said he can't do this." Her mother's hand flew to her mouth. For a moment, the strong woman who'd raised Jannie alone after her father left when she was 7, the woman who'd worked 2 jobs to put her through college, looked utterly lost. "That boy texted you? On your wedding day?" Her mother's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "He didn't even have the decency to." A knock on the door interrupted her. Everyone froze. "Jannie." A male voice, deep and familiar, made her heart do something complicated in her chest. "It's Gregory. Can I come in?" Gregory R. Harris. Her boss. The man she'd been trying very hard not to be in love with for the past 3 years. Have you ever had feelings for someone you knew you shouldn't? Someone who was completely off limits? Drop a comment and let me know, because what Jannie felt for Gregory was about to get very, very complicated. Camille opened the door a crack, then wider when she recognized him. Gregory stepped inside, and even in the midst of her personal crisis, Jannie's breath caught. He was 38, 8 years older than her, with that kind of classic masculine beauty that made people do double takes on the street. White, with dark hair that was always slightly too long, gray eyes that seemed to see right through whatever walls you tried to build, and the kind of presence that commanded attention without him saying a word. He'd built his wealth from nothing, a tech startup at 25 that had made him a billionaire by 30, and somehow managed to stay genuine despite the money. Today he wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her rent, but he'd loosened his tie like he always did when he was stressed. "I heard," he said quietly, his gaze finding hers in the mirror. "Derek's brother just arrived. He's outside trying to explain to your father." "Trying to explain what?" Jannie's mother demanded. "How do you explain abandoning a woman at her own wedding?" Gregory's jaw tightened. "You can't. It's inexcusable." The kindness in his voice was almost worse than the pity she'd seen in everyone else's eyes. Jannie stood abruptly, the dress rustling around her like a silk prison. "I need to go out there," she said. "I need to tell everyone it's cancelled. I need to." Her voice broke. She pressed her hands to her face, trying to hold back the tears that would ruin the makeup it had taken 2 hours to apply. What did it matter now? Who cared if she cried? "Jannie." Gregory crossed the room in 3 strides. He didn't touch her, he was always careful about that, always professional, but he stood close enough that she could smell his cologne, something woodsy and expensive that she'd never been able to identify. "Look at me." She lowered her hands. Met his eyes. In them, she saw something she couldn't quite name. Anger, yes. Determination, definitely. But something else, something that made her pulse quicken despite everything. "I have an idea," he said. "And I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" "What kind of idea?" Camille asked suspiciously. Gregory kept his eyes on Jannie. "The kind that saves you from the humiliation Derek is trying to inflict. The kind that makes sure when you walk out of this church today, you do it with your head held high." "Gregory, what are you talking about?" Jannie's mother moved closer, her protective instincts clearly on high alert. But Jannie was watching Gregory's face. She'd worked for him for 3 years as his executive assistant at Harris Technologies. She knew his tells. The slight tension in his jaw when he was about to make a risky business decision. The way his eyes focused with laser intensity when he'd identified a problem and its solution. The set of his shoulders when he was about to do something that would change everything. "Tell me," she whispered. Gregory's hand lifted, hesitated, then gently touched her cheek. It was the first time he'd ever touched her like that, with tenderness instead of the impersonal professionalism they'd maintained for years. "Pretend I'm your fiancé," he said quietly. "We tell everyone that Derek wasn't the groom. That you've been seeing me. That today is about us, not him." The room went silent. Even the bridesmaids stopped their whispered conversations. "You want me to lie to 200 people?" Jannie asked. "I want you to walk out of here with dignity instead of devastation," Gregory corrected. "I want Derek to realize he didn't break you. I want your mother to not have to field pitying looks from relatives for the next decade. And I want you to have a day that's about celebration, not humiliation." "That's crazy," Camille said flatly. "People know Derek. They've seen pictures. They know he's the groom." "Do they?" Gregory's expression was calculating now, the brilliant business mind that had made him millions working through the logistics. "Most of the guests are your family's friends, Jannie. People from your mother's church, your extended family, colleagues from your work who've never met Derek. How many people here actually know him? Jannie's mind raced. It was true that she and Derek had kept their relationship relatively private. He'd always been weird about social media, never wanting to post pictures together. The few friends she'd invited were mostly from college, people who'd met him once or twice at best. This is insane, she breathed. It's a solution, Gregory countered. And you have, he glanced at his watch, 8 minutes to decide. Her mother was staring at Gregory like she'd never seen him before. You're her boss. People know that. Office romances happen all the time, Mrs. Markley. It's not that hard to believe that working closely together for 3 years might have led to feelings developing. His eyes flicked back to Jannie. Especially given how remarkable your daughter is. The way he said it, like he meant every word, made something in Jannie's chest tighten. What would you do in Jannie's position? Take the humiliation and cancel the wedding? Or take the risk and let your boss pretend to be your groom? This is getting intense, isn't it? People will have questions, Jannie said slowly. They'll want to know why we kept it secret. Why? We'll say we wanted to keep our professional and personal lives separate, Gregory said smoothly. We'll say we tried to fight it but couldn't deny our feelings any longer. We'll say that when Derek found out, he stepped aside gracefully. His expression hardened. Let him be the one to correct that story if he wants to admit what he actually did. It was genius. Horrible and crazy and completely genius. What's in this for you? Jannie asked. Because that was the question that mattered, wasn't it? Gregory Harris didn't do anything without calculating the risks and benefits. Why would he put himself in this position? Something flickered across his face, there and gone so quickly she almost missed it. Let's just say I've been wanting to punch Derek in the face since the Christmas party last year, he said lightly. This is better than assault charges. The Christmas party. When Derek had gotten drunk and made a comment about Jannie's work husband being a little too interested. When Gregory had gone very still and very quiet, and Derek had laughed it off as a joke. When Jannie had wondered, just for a moment, if maybe. No. She couldn't think about that now. 6 minutes, Gregory said softly. Jannie, I won't push. If you want to go out there and announce the wedding is off, I'll stand beside you through that too. But if you want this option, I'm offering it. I'm offering to stand up there with you. To give you the day you deserve. To make sure Derek isn't the story everyone tells. Her mother took her hand. Baby, it's your choice. Whatever you decide, we'll handle it together. Jannie looked at herself in the mirror again. The dress. The flowers. The hope she'd felt this morning when she'd still believed today would be the beginning of her happily ever after. Derek had taken that from her. But maybe Gregory was right. Maybe she could take something back. She turned to face him. This man who'd hired her fresh out of grad school when nobody else would take a chance on her. Who'd mentored her, challenged her, paid for her to take advanced courses because he believed in her potential. Who sometimes looked at her like she was the most fascinating person in the world, right before he remembered they were just boss and employee, and shuttered that expression behind professional courtesy. If we do this, she said, her voice steadier than she felt, we have to commit. No halfway. If we're getting married today, we're getting married. Gregory's eyes widened slightly. Jannie. You said you wanted to give me a day of celebration instead of humiliation, she interrupted. Then let's do it right. Not pretend. Real. We can figure out the details later. Annulment, divorce, whatever. But if we're doing this, we're doing it all the way. Oh, this just got real. Is she crazy? Is this the worst decision ever? Or is this the beginning of something incredible? Stay with me because it's about to get even more intense. You want to actually marry me? Gregory's voice had gone very quiet. I want to walk out of here today as someone's wife, Jannie said. I want my mother to see me happy. I want to not feel like I'm not enough. And if we're going to lie to everyone anyway, let's make it legal so at least one part of today is real. For a long moment, Gregory just looked at her. Then, slowly, he nodded. Okay, he said. Yes. We'll do it. Camille made a strangled noise. This is the most insane thing I've ever heard. Probably, Jannie agreed. She looked at her mother. Ma. Her mother studied her face, then Gregory's, then shook her head slowly. I don't understand this. Any of this. But I trust you, baby. And Mr. Harris. Gregory, he corrected gently. Gregory, she amended. If you hurt my daughter, I don't care how rich you are. Understood. Completely, Gregory said seriously. You have my word, Mrs. Markley. I will never hurt Jannie. Not intentionally. Not ever. The certainty in his voice made Jannie's breath catch. Then I guess we have a wedding to save, her mother said. She squeezed Jannie's hand. You sure about this? Was she? No. Not even a little bit. This was impulsive and reckless and probably the worst decision she'd ever made. But looking at Gregory, at the way he was watching her like she was precious, like she mattered, like he would fight anyone who tried to hurt her, including, apparently, by marrying her himself, she found herself nodding. I'm sure. 3 minutes, Gregory said. He pulled out his phone, typed something quickly. I'm having my lawyer prepare paperwork. We'll sign everything after the ceremony. Make it legal and binding. You keep a lawyer on standby for spontaneous weddings? Camille asked incredulously. I keep a lawyer on retainer for everything, Gregory replied. One of the benefits of being obscenely wealthy. He looked at Jannie. Are you ready? No, she admitted. But let's do it anyway. Gregory smiled then, really smiled, and Jannie's heart did that complicated thing again. That's my girl, he said softly. My girl. Like she belonged to him. Like this was real instead of an elaborate rescue mission. For today, maybe it could be. He offered his arm. After a moment's hesitation, Jannie took it. Felt the solid warmth of him, the strength. Camille opened the door, and they stepped out into the hallway where Jannie's father stood with Derek's brother, both men looking equally uncomfortable. Daddy, Jannie said, her voice only shaking a little. Change of plans. Her father's eyes went from her to Gregory, down to where her hand rested on his arm, then back up. Something shifted in his expression. Understanding, maybe, or confusion. But he knew his daughter. Knew when to ask questions and when to trust. Change of plans, he repeated. All right then. He looked at Gregory. You good to my daughter? I will be, Gregory promised. Sir, I. No time for speeches, her father interrupted. He was a man of few words, always had been. You marrying her, or not? Yes, sir. Then let's go. Got 200 people waiting, and your mama's about to start making phone calls if we don't get moving. It was surreal, walking down that hallway. Camille rushed ahead to tell the other bridesmaids, who would spread the word to key family members. By the time they reached the doors to the chapel, Jannie's heart was pounding so hard she thought it might burst through her dress. Jannie! Gregory's voice stopped her. He turned to face her, both hands gentle on her shoulders. Last chance to back out. We can still tell everyone the truth. I'll stand with you through that. You don't have to do this. She looked up at him. Really looked at him. At the man she'd been half in love with since her first day of work, when he'd asked her opinion on a presentation and actually listened to her answer. The man who remembered she liked her coffee with oat milk and brought her favorite pastries when she worked late. Who'd sent flowers when her grandmother died and sat with her in his office while she cried, not saying anything, just being there. The man who, apparently, was willing to marry her to save her from humiliation. Why are you doing this? She whispered. Really? Gregory's thumb brushed her cheek, catching a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. Because you deserve better than Derek Paulson. Because watching you get hurt is killing me. Because... He paused, something vulnerable flickering across his face. Because I can't stand the thought of you walking out there alone. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have right now. His hand lingered on her face for a moment longer, then dropped. We should go. Your father's waiting. The doors opened. Music swelled, the traditional wedding march her mother had insisted on. 200 faces turned toward her. And Jannie M, Markley, in her perfect ivory dress, took a deep breath and started walking toward the altar. Not with Derek Paulson, the man she'd planned to marry, but with Gregory R. Harris, the man she'd never dared to hope for. And somewhere in the back of her mind, through all the panic and disbelief, a small voice whispered, "What if this is the best decision you've ever made?" The walk down the aisle felt like it lasted both forever and no time at all. Jannie was hyper-aware of everything, the whispers that rippled through the guests like a wave, the confused expressions, her mother's friend Clara leaning over to ask someone something, probably about why the groom suddenly looked completely different. But Gregory's arm under her hand was steady, solid, real. "Breathe," he murmured, quiet enough that only she could hear. "Just keep breathing. I've got you." She focused on putting one foot in front of the other. On the way her father squeezed her arm gently, offering silent support even though he had to be completely confused. On the late afternoon light streaming through the stained glass windows, painting everything in jewel tones. Not on the fact that she was about to marry her boss. Her very wealthy, very handsome, very off-limits boss. This was fine. This was completely fine. People did impulsive things all the time. This was just slightly more legally binding than most impulsive decisions. The officiant, Reverend Matthews, looked thoroughly confused when they reached the altar. He'd met with her and Derek 3 times for premarital counseling. He was clearly trying to figure out what was happening. Gregory handled it smoothly, leaning in to whisper something in the Reverend's ear. Whatever he said made the older man's eyebrows shoot up, but he nodded slowly. Money talked, Jannie thought with slight hysteria. Even in church. Her father kissed her cheek and stepped back. Suddenly, it was just her and Gregory, standing at the altar, with 200 pairs of eyes boring into their backs. "Dearly beloved," Reverend Matthews began, his voice only slightly uncertain, "we are gathered here today to witness the union of Gregory R. Harris and Jannie M. Markley." The ceremony blurred. Jannie heard the words, love, honor, cherished, sickness and health, but they seemed to come from very far away. She was too busy trying not to hyperventilate. What was she doing? What were they doing? Then Gregory took her hands, and everything snapped back into focus. His hands were warm, large enough to engulf hers completely. And the way he was looking at her, like she was the only person in the room, like this moment mattered, made her breath catch. "Jannie," he said quietly, and she realized he was speaking his vows. Custom vows. When had he had time to prepare vows? 3 years ago, you walked into my office for an interview. You were nervous, you kept fidgeting with your portfolio. But when I asked you what you could bring to Harris Technologies, you looked me in the eye and told me that I was asking the wrong question. That I should be asking what we could build together. A surprised laugh rippled through the guests. Jannie felt her face heat. She remembered that interview. She'd been so nervous she'd almost thrown up in the parking lot. But something about Gregory had made her feel brave. "I hired you that day," Gregory continued, "not just because you were brilliant, though you are, but because you were real. You didn't tell me what you thought I wanted to hear. You told me the truth." His thumb rubbed small circles on the back of her hand, and she wasn't sure if he even realized he was doing it. "For 3 years, I've watched you work harder than anyone I know. I've watched you fight for what you believe in. I've watched you be kind when you had every reason not to be. And I've thought every single day, how lucky I am that you chose to walk into my office instead of someone else's. Is your heart racing? Because mine is. Can you imagine your boss saying something like this to you? Comment below if you think Gregory's feelings are real or if he's just an incredible actor. "Today isn't what either of us planned," Gregory said, and something in his voice shifted. Became more vulnerable. But standing here with you feels more right than anything I've done in a long time. So I'm making you a promise, Jannie. For as long as this lasts, whether that's a week, a month, or forever, I promise to respect you. To support your dreams. To never make you feel less than the extraordinary woman you are. I promise to be worthy of the trust you're placing in me right now. And I promise that whatever happens after today, you will never regret giving me this moment with you. Silence hung in the chapel. Jannie's eyes were burning with tears she absolutely could not shed because she'd already ruined her makeup once today. Reverend Matthews cleared his throat gently. Ms. Markley. Right. She was supposed to say vows too. She didn't have anything prepared. She'd spent weeks writing and rewriting vows for Derek, but those felt like they belonged to a different person now. Gregory, she started, then stopped. What could she say? How could she possibly match what he'd just said when this whole thing was supposed to be pretend? Except it didn't feel pretend. Not with his hands holding hers like she was something precious. Not with 200 people watching. Not with her heart pounding so hard she could barely hear herself think. I didn't know what to expect when I walked into your office 3 years ago, she said finally. I was terrified. Fresh out of grad school, too much student debt, and a dozen rejection letters already. I needed that job. I needed it so badly that I almost didn't go to the interview because I was afraid of failing again. Gregory's hands tightened on hers. But you didn't just give me a job, Jannie continued. You gave me a chance. You listened when I had ideas. You pushed me to be better, smarter, braver. You made me believe I could be more than I thought possible. Her voice wavered. And somewhere along the way, working late nights and early mornings, building something incredible together, I stopped thinking of you as just my boss. I started thinking of you as... She trailed off. What was she supposed to say? As the man I was falling for but couldn't have because of professional boundaries and the guy I was dating and the fact that you're a billionaire and I'm just your assistant? As someone I couldn't imagine my life without, she finished quietly. So I'm making you a promise too. I promise to be honest with you, always. I promise to trust you, even when things don't make sense. And I promise that no matter what happens after today, I will never forget that you showed up for me when I needed someone most. The last words came out barely above a whisper. In the front row, she could see her mother dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. Reverend Matthews looked between them, and Jannie could swear she saw a small smile on his face. Like maybe he understood something she didn't. The rings, he prompted. Rings. Of course. The rings that were supposed to be exchanged with Derek. She started to panic, but Gregory was already producing a small velvet box from his jacket pocket. How? When? He opened it to reveal 2 rings. One was clearly meant for her, a stunning diamond and sapphire band that looked antique and delicate and absolutely perfect. The other was a simple platinum band. My grandmother's, Gregory said quietly, answering her unspoken question as he slipped the delicate ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. She gave it to me before she died. Made me promise I'd only use it for someone who made me want to be a better man. Jannie's hands shook as she took the platinum band. It was warm from being in his pocket, close to his heart. She slid it onto his finger, and it felt monumental. Real. Binding. By the power vested in me, Reverend Matthews said, his voice warm now. I now pronounce you husband and wife. He paused. You may kiss your bride. Gregory's hands came up to cup her face. Is this okay? He whispered, giving her one last chance to back out. Jannie nodded. She couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. And then Gregory R. Harris, Billionaire CEO, her boss, and now her husband, kissed her. It wasn't a perfunctory kiss. Not the kind of quick peck she'd seen at other weddings. Gregory kissed her like he meant it. Like this was real. His lips were warm and firm against hers, and when she made a small surprised sound, he deepened the kiss slightly, one hand sliding to the back of her neck, holding her like she was precious. The chapel erupted in applause. But Jannie barely heard it. Because Gregory was kissing her like she'd imagined 1,000 times during boring meetings and late nights at the office, and it was everything she'd never let herself hope for. When he finally pulled back, his eyes were dark, intense, searching hers for something. "Okay," he murmured. She nodded, not trusting her voice. The recessional music started. Gregory tucked her hand into the crook of his arm, and they walked back down the aisle together. Husband and wife. Mr. and Mrs. Harris. It was only when they reached the doors and stepped into the hallway that Jannie finally let herself think. What the hell did I just do? The reception hall at the historic Battery Carriage House Inn was everything Jannie's mother had dreamed of: exposed brick walls, elegant chandelier lighting, and tall windows overlooking Charleston's waterfront. The tables were set with cream linens and centerpieces of magnolias and roses. Everything was perfect. Everything except the fact that Jannie had just married the wrong man. No, not the wrong man. Different man. Very different man. "You're hyperventilating," Gregory said quietly as they stood in the hallway outside the reception, waiting for the coordinator to announce them. "Try to slow your breathing." "I just married you," Jannie whispered. "I just married my boss. In front of 200 people. This is insane. This is..." "Jannie." He turned to face her fully, hands gentle on her shoulders. "Look at me." She did. Those gray eyes were calm. Steady. How was he so calm? "We're going to go in there," he said. "We're going to have dinner. We're going to dance. We're going to smile and accept congratulations. And then, when it's over, we're going to figure out what happens next. Together." "Okay. How are you so calm about this?" Something flickered across his face. "Who says I'm calm? I'm just better at hiding panic than you are." A small smile. Years of practice in boardrooms. Despite everything, Jannie felt her lips twitch. "We're going to have to tell people the truth eventually." "Eventually," Gregory agreed. "But not today. Today, you get to have the celebration you deserve. Your mother worked too hard on this for it to be ruined by Derek's cowardice." The mention of Derek sent a spike of pain through her chest. What was he doing right now? Was he relieved? Guilty? Did he even care that he'd destroyed her? Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted completely? How did you handle it? I want to hear your stories in the comments. The coordinator poked her head into the hallway. "Ready?" "No. Absolutely not." But Jannie nodded anyway. "Ladies and gentlemen," the coordinator's voice rang out, "please welcome for the first time as husband and wife, Mr. Gregory R. Harris and Mrs. Jannie Markley Harris." The doors opened. Music swelled. And Jannie walked into her wedding reception on the arm of a man she'd married less than an hour ago. The applause was deafening. Guests stood, clapping and cheering. Jannie pasted on a smile and tried not to look as terrified as she felt. Gregory's hand found the small of her back, warm, steady, grounding. They made their way to the head table. Camille was already there, looking like she couldn't decide whether to laugh or call a psychiatric hospital. The other bridesmaids were doing a remarkable job of pretending this was all perfectly normal. "Speech," someone called out. "Speech." Gregory rose smoothly, reaching for a champagne glass. The room quieted. "Thank you all for being here," he said, his voice carrying easily through the room. "I know some of you are confused about today's unexpected turn of events." Nervous laughter rippled through the guests. "The truth is, Jannie and I have been keeping our relationship private for professional reasons. We work together. She's my executive assistant and the person who actually keeps Harris Technologies running while I take credit for her ideas." More laughter. Jannie's face heated. "But recently," Gregory continued, his eyes finding hers, "we realized that life is too short to hide how we feel. Too short to let other people's expectations dictate our happiness. So when the opportunity presented itself today..." He paused, and his smile was genuine. "I wasn't about to let her get away." The room erupted in "Us," and applause. Jannie's mother was crying again. Even her father, stoic as always, looked suspiciously misty-eyed. Gregory sat back down, his hand finding hers under the table. His thumb traced circles on her palm, a gesture that was becoming familiar. Comforting. "You're a really good liar," Jannie murmured. "I didn't lie," Gregory said quietly. "Every word was true. I just edited the timeline a bit." Before she could process that, dinner was being served. Jannie barely tasted her food. She was too busy smiling at well-wishers, accepting hugs from relatives who wanted to know all about how this romance had developed, fielding questions about why they'd kept it secret for so long. Gregory handled it all with the smooth confidence of someone who dealt with press conferences and investor meetings. He was charming, funny, just the right amount of affectionate without being over the top. To anyone watching, they looked like a couple genuinely in love. Maybe he was just that good an actor. Or maybe, and this thought made her stomach flip, maybe he wasn't acting at all. "First dance," the DJ announced. Right. The first dance. To a song she'd chosen with Derek. A song that now felt tainted by his betrayal. But when the opening notes of At Last, by Etta James filled the room, not the song she'd planned, Jannie's breath caught. This was one of her favorite songs. She'd mentioned it once, months ago, during a late night at the office. Had Gregory remembered? He led her to the dance floor. His hand settled at her waist, and she placed hers on his shoulder. They were close, closer than they'd ever been at work, closer than professional courtesy allowed. "I hate the song you originally chose," Gregory admitted as they began to sway. "No offense. You changed my wedding playlist." "I changed our wedding playlist," he corrected. "And yes, that song was generic and boring. You deserve Etta James. What's your first dance song? Drop your favorites in the comments. And don't go anywhere, this is about to get really interesting." They moved together easily, and Jannie was surprised to discover that Gregory was an excellent dancer. Of course he was. Was there anything this man wasn't good at? "You're stiff," he murmured. "Relax. I'm dancing with my boss at my fake wedding. How am I supposed to relax?" "It's not fake," Gregory said. "We signed papers. We said vows. This is legally binding, Jannie. That makes it real. You know what I mean." "Do I?" His eyes met hers. "Because from where I'm standing, this feels pretty real." The song shifted, building to the chorus. Etta's voice soared, singing about finding love at last. And Gregory pulled her closer, not inappropriately, but close enough that she could feel the solid warmth of him, could smell his cologne, could count the subtle flecks of blue in his gray eyes. "Why did you really do this?" she whispered. "Don't give me the line about Derek. Tell me the truth." Gregory was quiet for a long moment. They turned slowly, the room full of people watching them, and Jannie felt like they were in a bubble. Just the two of them. 3 years, he finally said. "For 3 years, I've watched you date that man. Watched you dim your light to make him comfortable. Watched him take you for granted." His jaw tightened. "Did you know he tried to convince you to quit your job last year? Came to my office and asked me to fire you because you were working too much, and it was affecting your relationship." Jannie stumbled. Gregory's arm tightened, keeping her upright. "He what?" "I told him that if he had a problem with your career, he should discuss it with you like an adult instead of trying to sabotage you behind your back." Gregory's voice was hard now. "He called me controlling. Said I was too invested in my assistant. That fight. Last year, Derek had suddenly started pushing her to look for other jobs. Said she deserved better than being just an assistant. She'd thought he was being supportive. I didn't know," she said. "I know. I didn't tell you because..." Gregory paused. "Because I couldn't trust myself to be objective. Because my reasons for wanting you to stay weren't entirely professional. Because Derek was right, I was too invested." The song was ending. But neither of them moved to step apart. Invested how? Jannie barely breathed the question. Gregory's hand came up, tucking a curl that had escaped her updo behind her ear. It was such an intimate gesture, so tender, that her breath caught. Later, he promised. We'll talk about everything later. Right now, your mother is about to cut in, and then you'll spend the next hour dancing with every male relative you have. Just trust me for a little longer. Can you do that? Jannie nodded. The song ended, and sure enough, her father was approaching for the traditional father-daughter dance. The rest of the reception passed in a blur. Dinner, cake cutting, the bouquet toss, which Camille caught with a look of absolute horror on her face. Speeches from her mother and Gregory's best man, a colleague from work who seemed genuinely thrilled about the marriage and made several jokes about office romance. Through it all, Gregory was there. A steady presence at her elbow, his hand finding the small of her back, his smile catching hers across the room. And slowly, Jannie felt herself relaxing. Letting herself enjoy this strange, impossible day. Maybe this was crazy. Probably it was the worst decision she'd ever made. But watching Gregory laugh at something her uncle said, seeing the way he listened intently when her grandmother told him stories about Jannie as a child, noticing how he made sure her mother always had a fresh drink and her father felt included in conversations, it made something in her chest ache. Derek had never tried this hard. Had never made her family feel this valued. Had never looked at her the way Gregory did, like she was fascinating and frustrating and wonderful all at once. As the evening wore on and the crowd thinned, Camille pulled her aside. "Okay," her best friend said. "I need to know. Is this real? Are you actually into him? Or is this the most elaborate revenge plot in history?" Jannie glanced across the room where Gregory was helping her elderly aunt navigate the steps to the exit. "I don't know," she admitted. 3 hours ago, I was supposed to marry Derek. Now I'm married to Gregory. I don't know what's real anymore. He looks at you like you hung the moon, Camille observed. Just saying. He's being kind. Saving me from humiliation. Jannie. Camille grabbed her shoulders. I've known you since freshman year of college. I know when you're lying to yourself. You've been half in love with that man since the day you started working for him. And unless I'm completely misreading things, he feels the same way. That's crazy. So is marrying your boss at a wedding that was supposed to be for someone else, Camille pointed out. But here we are. Before Jannie could respond, Gregory appeared at her elbow. Your mother's asking about the send-off. Rice or bubbles? Right. The send-off. The part where they left together. Where they were supposed to go to the honeymoon suite her mother had booked at the hotel. Where they'd have to figure out what the hell happened next. The honeymoon suite at the Wentworth mansion was breathtaking. All antique furniture, a 4-poster bed that looked like it belonged in a romantic movie, and French doors that opened onto a private balcony overlooking the city. Rose petals were scattered across the bed. Champagne chilled in a bucket. Candles flickered on every surface. It was perfect for a wedding night, which made it absolutely terrifying for whatever this was. Jannie stood in the middle of the room, still in her wedding dress, and wondered if it was possible to die from awkwardness. I can sleep on the couch, Gregory said immediately, reading her mind like he always did at work. Or I can get another room. Whatever makes you comfortable. There's no couch. Then the floor. Gregory, you're not sleeping on the floor. Jannie kicked off her heels, finally, blessed relief, and sank onto the edge of the bed. This is ridiculous. We're both adults. We can share a bed for one night. Can we? He'd loosened his tie the moment they'd entered the room, and he looked rumpled and human, and nothing like the polished CEO the world saw. Jannie, I don't want you to feel pressured. I don't. She interrupted him, then realized that was only partially true. I mean, I know you're not, that you wouldn't. She trailed off, frustrated with her inability to form coherent sentences. Gregory moved to sit beside her on the bed. Not too close, but close enough that she could feel the warmth of him. I need you to understand something, he said quietly. Nothing about today was meant to put you in an uncomfortable position. Sharing this room, this bed, it doesn't mean anything has to happen. We can figure out sleeping arrangements, and tomorrow we'll start untangling this mess. Okay. Real talk. Would you be able to share a bed with someone you're attracted to but can't have? This situation is wild, right? Jannie looked down at her hands. At the ring on her finger, his grandmother's ring. Can I ask you something? Anything. Earlier, at the reception, you said you couldn't trust yourself to be objective about me. What did you mean? Gregory was quiet for so long that Jannie thought he might not answer. Then he stood, crossing to the French doors and opening them. Cool evening air drifted in, carrying the scent of magnolias from the garden below. Come here, he said. She went, joining him on the balcony. The city sprawled below them, lights twinkling like stars. It was beautiful, Charleston at its finest, historic and romantic and timeless. Do you remember your first week at Harris Technologies? Gregory asked. Of course. You had me reorganize your entire filing system. Because the previous assistant was incompetent and I was drowning in paperwork, Gregory said. You finished it in 3 days. It should have taken 2 weeks. He leaned against the railing. But that's not what I remember most about that first week. What do you remember? Thursday afternoon. You were at your desk, and your computer crashed. You'd been working on a presentation for me, 3 hours of work, gone. I expected you to be frustrated, to complain, to maybe even cry. He turned to look at her. You laughed. Jannie blinked. I did. You said, well, I guess the universe is telling me the first version wasn't good enough. And then you started over. Made it better. Stayed late to finish it. Brought me coffee when you noticed I was still working at 8 p.m. His expression was soft now, vulnerable in a way she'd never seen. And I thought, this woman is remarkable. And I'm in trouble. Her heart was pounding. Trouble. Because you were my employee, Jannie. Because there were rules and boundaries and professional ethics. Because you were with someone else. Because I was 35 and you were 27, and I had no right to feel anything beyond professional respect. He ran a hand through his hair. But I did. I felt everything. And for 3 years, I've been trying to convince myself it was just admiration. Just respect for a colleague. Just what? Just not love, Gregory said quietly. Because if it was love, then I was in real trouble. The world tilted. Jannie grabbed the railing for support. You loved me? Love, he corrected. Present tense. I love you, Jannie. I have for longer than I want to admit. And today, when I saw you in that wedding dress, about to marry a man who didn't deserve you, who was abandoning you like you were disposable, his hands clenched on the railing. I couldn't let it happen. Even if it meant crossing every line I'd drawn. Even if it meant risking our professional relationship. Even if it meant you'd hate me afterward. Jannie couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. 3 years. For 3 years, she'd been forcing herself not to feel what she felt for Gregory Harris. Telling herself it was just a crush, just attraction to an objectively handsome boss, just the result of working closely together. And the whole time, he'd been feeling the same thing. I don't hate you, she whispered. Gregory's laugh was bitter. Give it time. When the shock wears off and you realize I took advantage of your vulnerable moment. You didn't take advantage. Jannie moved closer, her hand covering his on the railing. Gregory, you gave me a choice. You offered me a way out of humiliation, yes, but you also gave me the option to refuse. I could have walked away. I could have told everyone the truth. I didn't. You were in shock. You weren't thinking clearly. Maybe. She turned to face him fully. Or maybe some part of me has been waiting for an excuse to do this for 3 years. Maybe when you offered me a way to be yours, even temporarily, even under false pretenses. I grabbed it with both hands because I'm a coward who couldn't just tell you how I felt. Gregory's eyes searched hers. How do you feel? This was it. The moment of truth. She could lie, protect herself, preserve some semblance of professionalism and dignity. Or she could be brave. Life is too short, Gregory had said in his speech. Too short to hide how we feel. I'm in love with you, Jannie said. The words came out stronger than she expected. I have been for so long that I can't even pinpoint when it started. Maybe that first week, when you trusted me with important work instead of treating me like I was incompetent. Maybe 6 months in, when you promoted me and told me I earned it. Maybe last year, when my grandmother died and you sat with me and just held my hand while I cried. Her voice cracked. Or maybe it was today, when you walked into that bridal suite and offered to save me from my own poor choices. Jannie. I know it's complicated, she continued. I know we work together. I know this is probably the most unprofessional thing either of us has ever done. I know we should probably get this marriage annulled and pretend today never happened. But Gregory kissed her. Not like at the altar, chaste and appropriate for public consumption. He kissed her like she was oxygen and he'd been drowning. His hands cupped her face, tilted her head back, and his mouth claimed hers with an intensity that made her knees weak. Jannie gasped against his lips, and he deepened the kiss, one hand sliding into her hair. Carefully, so carefully, mindful of all the pins holding her updo together. She grabbed his shirt for balance, pulling him closer, and made a sound that was half laugh, half sob. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Gregory pressed his forehead to hers. We're not getting an annulment, he said firmly. I didn't marry you to save you from embarrassment, Jannie. I married you because I've wanted to marry you since approximately month 6 of your employment, and I finally had an excuse. She laughed, the sound watery. That's the worst reason to get married. Is it? Because from where I'm standing, it's the best reason I can think of. He pulled back just enough to meet her eyes. I love you. I'm in love with you. And yes, the timing is insane and the circumstances are bizarre and we probably should have had several conversations before jumping straight to marriage, but I can't bring myself to regret it. We're going to have to figure out the work situation, Jannie said. This is definitely against company policy. Then we'll change the policy. Or I'll fire you and hire you back as a consultant at triple your current salary. Or you can finally take that position in product development you've been too loyal to leave me for. He kissed her forehead. We'll figure it out, Jannie. Together. Because I'm not losing you. Not to professional complications, not to my own fears, not to anything. Would you risk your career for love? Would you stay married to someone you barely knew but had feelings for? This is getting so intense. Jannie's hands were shaking. Everything was happening so fast. This morning, she'd been preparing to marry Derek. Now she was married to Gregory, standing on a balcony, being kissed like she was precious. I'm scared, she admitted. Me too, Gregory said. Terrified, actually. But I'd rather be terrified with you than safe and alone without you. They stood there for a long moment, wrapped up in each other, the city lights twinkling below. Jannie could hear music drifting from somewhere, a jazz club, maybe, or a restaurant. Charleston was alive tonight, vibrant and romantic, and she was married to the man she loved. Even if she'd only realized the full extent of that love about an hour ago. We should probably try to sleep, Gregory said eventually. It's been a long day. The most understated assessment in history. But Jannie nodded. They went back inside. The bed suddenly seemed enormous. Daunting. Gregory must have sensed her hesitation because he smiled gently. Here's what's going to happen, he said. You're going to change into something comfortable. I'm going to change into something comfortable. We're going to get in that bed, on opposite sides, with approximately 3 feet of space between us. And we're going to sleep. That's it. No pressure. No expectations. Just sleep. Okay, Jannie said. Then, I don't have anything to change into. All my stuff was supposed to go to the honeymoon suite at the resort Derek booked. For the honeymoon, that's not happening. Gregory crossed to the closet, pulled out one of his dress shirts. Wear this. She took the shirt, soft cotton that smelled like him, and disappeared into the bathroom. It took 15 minutes to get out of the wedding dress. So many buttons, why did wedding dresses have so many buttons, and remove all the pins from her hair. When she finally emerged, wearing just his shirt and her underwear, hair loose around her shoulders, Gregory was staring at her like she'd stolen his ability to form words. That's... He cleared his throat. You look. I should go change. He practically fled to the bathroom. Jannie climbed into the bed, the incredibly comfortable, ridiculously large bed with its mountain of pillows and soft sheets. She could hear water running in the bathroom. Gregory brushing his teeth. The mundane sounds of getting ready for bed. With her husband. Her husband who loved her. Her husband who she loved back. The bathroom door opened. Gregory emerged in pajama pants and an undershirt, his hair damp like he'd splashed water on his face. He looked younger like this. Less CEO, more just, man. Handsome, kind, wonderful man. He climbed into the other side of the bed, maintaining that 3 feet of space he'd promised. They lay there in the semi-darkness. The candles had burned down, but moonlight streamed through the open balcony doors. Jannie. Yeah. Thank you for trusting me today. She rolled onto her side to face him. He did the same, and suddenly that 3 feet of space seemed both enormous and insignificant. Thank you for showing up, she said. For caring enough to do something crazy. It wasn't that crazy. Marrying you is probably the sanest decision I've ever made. She smiled. We're going to have to tell people the truth eventually. About Derek. About how this really happened. We'll tell them we fell in love working together, and when the opportunity presented itself to get married sooner rather than later, we took it, Gregory said. All true. We'll just edit the timeline a bit. Skip the part about Derek. You're really good at creative truth-telling. I'm a CEO. It's part of the job description. His hand reached out, found hers in the space between them. Their fingers interlaced. Get some sleep, Mrs. Harris. Mrs. Harris. She was Mrs. Harris now. Jannie M. Markley Harris. It felt surreal and perfect and terrifying all at once. Good night, Gregory, she whispered. She thought she'd lie awake all night, mind racing with everything that had happened. But with Gregory's hand warm in hers, his steady breathing beside her, and the scent of magnolias drifting through the balcony doors, sleep came surprisingly easily. Tomorrow, they'd figure out how to be married. How to navigate their careers and their families and all the complicated logistics of a relationship that had jumped from 0 to married in one afternoon. But tonight, Jannie let herself just be. Be married. Be loved. Be exactly where she was always meant to be. Even if it had taken the worst day of her life to get there. Jannie woke to sunlight streaming through the French doors and the unfamiliar but not unwelcome weight of an arm draped across her waist. For a moment, she lay perfectly still, trying to remember where she was. The bed was too soft, the sheets too expensive, the room too elegant. Then it all came rushing back. The wedding. Derek's texts. Gregory's offer. The vows. The kiss. The confession on the balcony. I love you. I'm in love with you. She turned her head carefully, not wanting to wake him. Gregory was still asleep, his face relaxed in a way she'd never seen during work hours. His hair was messy, falling across his forehead. His arm was heavy and warm across her middle, and at some point during the night, they'd migrated toward each other. So much for that 3 feet of space. She should move. Should put some distance between them. This was all so new, so fragile. What if last night was just the emotion of the day talking? What if in the harsh light of morning, they both realized this was a terrible mistake? But then Gregory's eyes opened. Those gray eyes that had watched her across conference rooms and office desks for 3 years. And when he saw her, when he registered where he was and who he was holding, his entire face softened. "Morning," he murmured, voice rough with sleep. "Morning." Jannie's voice came out barely above a whisper. You're kind of on top of me." Gregory glanced down at where his arm was wrapped around her, where she was pressed against his chest, their legs tangled together. "Ha. So I am." He didn't move away. "Sorry. I'm apparently a cuddler." "I don't mind." No. And she didn't. This felt right in a way that nothing with Derek ever had. Natural. Easy. Like this was exactly where she was supposed to be. Have you ever woken up next to someone and just known it was right? "Tell me your stories." Gregory's hand moved, tracing lazy circles on her hip through his shirt she was wearing. "We should probably talk about what happens now." Probably. Neither of them moved. "Your phone's been buzzing for the last hour," Gregory said. "I didn't want to wake you." Reality came crashing back. Right. The outside world. People who would have questions. Derek, who would probably have heard by now that his ex-fiancé had married someone else at what was supposed to be their wedding. Jannie reached for her phone on the nightstand. 43 messages. 17 missed calls. She scrolled through them with growing dread. "Derek, what the hell, Jannie? Who is this guy? Derek, you're married? You moved on that fast? Derek, I'm sorry about today but this is insane. Derek, we need to talk." "He has some nerve," Gregory said, reading over her shoulder. "He dumps you via text and then gets upset when you move on?" Jannie kept scrolling. Messages from friends, colleagues, relatives, all variations of "congratulations" and "I had no idea you two were together" and "tell us everything." And then, one from Camille at 3 in the morning. "Camille, I googled your husband. Girl. Do you know he's worth like $2.3 billion? $2.3 billion. With AB. I'm going to need you to explain everything as soon as possible." "Your best friend is very enthusiastic," Gregory observed. "She tends to be." Jannie set the phone back down. "We're going to have to make some kind of statement. To our families, to work, to everyone." "HR is going to have a field day," Gregory agreed. He finally rolled onto his back, giving her space but keeping one hand linked with hers. "I'm thinking we tell work tomorrow. Today, we deal with family. My mother is going to have questions." "Mothers always do. But she likes me, I think." She was crying happy tears at the reception. "She cries at commercials," Jannie said. "Don't let it go to your head." Gregory laughed, the sound rumbling through his chest. Then he turned serious. "Jannie, I need you to know something. Yesterday, I meant everything I said. On the balcony, in the vows, all of it. This isn't just some elaborate rescue mission that I'm going to regret in the morning." "Are you sure?" "Because marrying your assistant has to be pretty high on the list of terrible CEO decisions." "You're not just my assistant," Gregory said. "You never were. You're brilliant, Jannie. You've contributed more to Harris Technologies than half my executives. You've turned down 3 job offers from competitors because, and I quote, "I believe in what we're building here." You make me better at my job. You make me better, period. Jannie's throat felt tight. "You're going to make me cry, and I've already cried more in the last 24 hours than I have in the past year." "Then I'll stop." But he kissed her forehead anyway, gentle and sweet. "Shower? And then we'll face the world." They took turns in the bathroom, awkward but manageable. Jannie discovered that the hotel had provided toiletries and she had nothing to wear except her wedding dress or Gregory's shirt. She chose the shirt again, pairing it with her underwear from yesterday. Gregory called down to the concierge and had them send up casual clothes in her size. "How did you know my size?" Jannie asked when a bellhop delivered jeans, a soft blue blouse, and even proper undergarments. I pay attention, Gregory said simply. 3 years, remember? By the time they were both dressed and had ordered room service for breakfast, Jannie's phone had accumulated another dozen messages, including one from her mother that just said, "Call me now." She took a deep breath and dialed. "Jannie Markley Harris," her mother answered, voice stern. "You have exactly 5 minutes to explain to me what happened yesterday before I drive over there and demand answers in person." "Ma, Gregory seems like a lovely man, baby, and Lord knows I'm happy you're not marrying that Derek after what he pulled. But you married your boss at a wedding that was supposed to be for someone else. And you expect me to believe you two have been secretly dating for months." Jannie closed her eyes. Of course her mother had seen through the story. The woman had raised her alone, worked 2 jobs, and still managed to always know when Jannie was lying about where she'd been on a Friday night. "It's complicated," Jannie said. "Then uncomplicated." Gregory, who could apparently hear her mother's voice from across the room, came to sit beside her on the couch. He held out his hand. After a moment, Jannie gave him the phone. "Mrs. Markley," he said, voice respectful but firm. "May I speak frankly?" "Please do, because I'm tired of the dancing around." "I'm in love with your daughter," Gregory said. "I have been for a long time. Longer than is probably appropriate for an employer. And yesterday, when I saw her hurting, when I saw her about to be humiliated by a man who didn't deserve her, I couldn't stand by and do nothing. So yes, we lied about the timeline. Yes, this happened faster than it should have. But the important parts, the love, the commitment, the intention to build a life together, those are all real." Silence on the other end of the line. Jannie held her breath. "You love her," her mother finally said. "It wasn't a question. More than I can adequately express. And she loves you." "I believe so," Gregory said. "Though you'd have to ask her to be certain." "I do, Ma," Jannie called out. "I love him." Another pause. Then, "Gregory Harris, you listen to me. My daughter is the most important thing in my life. I raised her alone. I sacrificed everything to give her opportunities. And I will not watch her be hurt again. Not by Derek, not by you, not by anyone. Understood?" "Completely," Gregory said seriously. "And I give you my word, Mrs. Markley, I will spend every day proving that I'm worthy of her. Even when I inevitably fall short, I will never stop trying." This man is saying all the right things, isn't he? Would his words be enough to convince you if you were Jannie's mom? A sigh, deep and weary. "I'm too old for this kind of drama, you know. I'm supposed to be planning a nice, normal wedding for my daughter. Not dealing with secret marriages and billionaire bosses." "I'll make it up to you," Gregory promised. "We'll have a proper reception. Something you can plan, where you can invite everyone who couldn't come yesterday. My treat." "I don't want your money, Mr. Harris." "Gregory, please. And I know. But I want to give you the chance to celebrate your daughter properly. To not have yesterday's chaos be the only memory you have of her wedding day." Another pause. Then, surprisingly, a laugh. "You're smooth, I'll give you that. Fine. But I expect to see both of you for Sunday dinner. And I expect the full, truthful story. No more editing. Understood?" "Yes, ma'am." "Good. Now put my daughter back on." Gregory handed the phone over. Jannie took it with shaking hands. "Baby," her mother said, voice softer now. "Are you happy?" The question caught her off guard. Was she happy? Yesterday she'd been preparing to marry Derek, and she'd felt obligated. Like she was checking a box on life's to-do list. Get married, check. Have the wedding everyone expected, check. But now, sitting beside Gregory, wearing his shirt and eating room service breakfast in a honeymoon suite, with a ring on her finger that had belonged to his grandmother, she felt something she hadn't felt with Derek. She felt like herself. Completely and utterly herself. "Yeah, Ma," she said quietly. "I think I really am." Then that's all that matters. A pause. He better be good to you. He will be. And if he's not, you call me. I may be getting older, but I can still take a man down if I need to. Jannie laughed, tears pricking her eyes. I love you, Ma. Love you too, baby. Now go enjoy your honeymoon or whatever this is. We'll talk Sunday. The line went dead. Jannie set the phone down and looked at Gregory. Well, that went better than expected. Your mother is terrifying in the best possible way, Gregory said admirably. Reminds me of my grandmother. The one whose ring I'm wearing? The very same. She would have loved you. He pulled Jannie closer, tucking her against his side. She used to tell me that when I found someone who made me want to be better than I was, someone who challenged me and supported me in equal measure, I should hold on tight and never let go. Wise woman. The wisest. Gregory kissed the top of her head. So that's what I'm doing. Holding on tight. If you'll let me. Jannie tilted her face up, and he kissed her, slow and sweet, like they had all the time in the world. Like this was the beginning of something instead of a desperate solution to a crisis. When they broke apart, Gregory rested his forehead against hers. We have a week before we need to be back at work. I booked us a place on Kiowa Island. Private beach house. Just us. We can figure things out, talk about everything, decide what happens next. You booked a honeymoon? I made a lot of calls very quickly yesterday morning, Gregory admitted. Wasn't sure if you'd agree to any of this, but I wanted to be prepared. You're kind of scary when you're efficient. It's one of my more attractive qualities. He stood, pulling her up with him. Come on. Let's check out and go somewhere we can just be. No family, no friends, no phones unless we want them. Just us. Just us. The idea was both terrifying and thrilling. A week alone with Gregory to figure out if this crazy, impulsive marriage could actually work. But as Jannie gathered her things, which weren't much, since everything she'd planned for her honeymoon with Derek was now useless, she realized something. She already knew it could work. Because this was Gregory. The man who'd believed in her from day one. Who'd challenged her and supported her and seen her. Really seen her, in a way Derek never had. And if yesterday had taught her anything, it was that life was too short to play it safe. Too short to settle for someone who didn't make her heart race. Too short to pretend she didn't want exactly what she'd somehow been given. A chance at real love with the right man. Even if it had taken the worst day of her life to get there. The beach house on Kiowa Island was, of course, spectacular. 3 bedrooms, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the ocean, a private deck with a hot tub, and a kitchen that was bigger than Jannie's entire apartment. You're sure this isn't too much? Jannie asked as Gregory carried their minimal luggage inside. I don't want you to think you have to. I don't know, impress me with money. I'm not trying to impress you, Gregory said. I'm trying to give us space to figure things out without the rest of the world breathing down our necks. If that comes with a nice view and a hot tub, so much the better. Would you want to go to a private beach house with someone you just married? Or would you rather stay somewhere more modest? Let me know in the comments. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink and purple that looked too beautiful to be real. Jannie stood on the deck, breathing in the salt air, trying to wrap her mind around the fact that she was on her honeymoon. With her boss. Her husband. The man she loved. It still felt surreal. You're thinking too hard, Gregory said, joining her at the railing. He'd changed into casual clothes, jeans and a soft t-shirt that somehow made him look even more attractive than the expensive suits he wore to work. I can practically hear your brain spinning. We didn't talk about what happens when we go back, Jannie said. To work, I mean. Do I keep being your assistant? Do I transfer departments? Do I quit? You're not quitting. Gregory. You're not quitting, he repeated firmly. You're too valuable to the company. To me. We'll figure out a solution that works for everyone. Company policy says. Company policy was written before the CEO fell in love with his assistant, Gregory interrupted. We'll update it. Create guidelines for workplace relationships that are based on consent and equal power dynamics rather than blanket prohibition. It's actually something we should have done years ago. Jannie turned to face him. You'd change company policy? For us. I'd change a lot more than that if I needed to. He reached out, tucking a curl behind her ear, a gesture that was becoming familiar. Comforting. Jannie, I meant what I said. I'm not losing you. Not to professional complications, not to concern about what people will say. If that means restructuring the entire company so we're not in a direct reporting relationship, then that's what we'll do. You're serious. Completely. His hand lingered on her cheek. 3 years, I've watched you work harder than anyone I know. Watched you contribute ideas that saved us millions. Watched you mentor junior employees and streamline processes and make Harris Technologies better just by being there. You think I'm going to let you walk away because of optics? What about the board? They're going to have opinions. The board works for the shareholders, and I'm the majority shareholder, Gregory said. But more than that, you know who sits on our board? Senator Wallace, whose campaign you helped organize fundraising for. Dr. Yoon, whose wife you helped when she was looking for work after her maternity leave. Marcus Chen. The Marcus Chen you told me never to use as a character name? Gregory blinked. What? Nothing. Continue. Marcus Chen, whose daughter you tutored in math during her senior year of high school. You've made allies, Jannie. You've built relationships. The board isn't going to have a problem with this. And if they do, I'll handle it. She wanted to believe him. Wanted to believe it could be that simple. But years of making herself small, of second-guessing her worth, of being told by Derek that she was too ambitious and too focused on work had left scars. Hey. Gregory lifted her chin, forcing her to meet his eyes. Talk to me. What's going on in that brilliant mind? I'm scared, Jannie admitted. Derek always made me feel like I was too much, too driven, too focused on my career. He wanted me to quit and stay home once we got married. Said he made enough money for both of us. She laughed bitterly. I actually considered it for about 5 minutes. Thought maybe he was right, that I was too obsessed with work. Gregory's expression darkened. He was an idiot. And for the record, your ambition is one of the things I love most about you. Really? Really? He pulled her closer, arms wrapping around her waist. Do you remember the Henderson deal last year? The one where the client was being impossible about terms. Jannie nodded. She remembered. The client had wanted concessions that would have made the project unprofitable. Gregory had been ready to walk away from the whole thing. You came into my office at 7 p.m., Gregory continued, with a completely new proposal structure. You'd spent your entire weekend reworking the numbers, finding creative solutions. You presented it so well that even I was impressed. And I hired you in the first place because you impressed me. I remember. You looked annoyed that I'd used my weekend to work. I wasn't annoyed that you worked. I was annoyed that you were dating someone who didn't appreciate your dedication, who made you feel guilty for being extraordinary. Gregory's thumb traced circles on her lower back. Jannie, you could outwork everyone in that office if you wanted to. You're that talented. And instead of celebrating that, Derek tried to dim your light. Tears pricked her eyes. You're making me cry again. Sorry. But he didn't sound sorry. He sounded fierce. Protective. Like he'd fight anyone who tried to make her feel less than she was. I don't want special treatment at work, Jannie said. If we're doing this, if we're really staying together, I want to earn my position. I don't want people thinking I got ahead because I'm sleeping with the CEO. You're married to the CEO, Gregory corrected. And you've already earned your position. Multiple times over. But I hear you. So here's what we'll do. We'll bring in an external consulting firm. Have them evaluate your performance objectively. When they tell me you're exceeding expectations in every measurable category, will you believe you deserve to be there? It was a smart solution. Typical Gregory, actually. Identify the problem, find an objective measure, solve it systematically. Okay, Jannie agreed. That works. Good. He kissed her forehead. Now can we please stop talking about work? We're on our honeymoon. We should be doing honeymoon things. Such as, I don't know, walking on the beach, drinking wine, making out like teenagers. His eyes sparkled. I'm open to suggestions. Jannie laughed. All of the above? I like how you think, Mrs. Harris. They walked down to the beach as the last rays of sunlight faded. The sand was soft beneath their feet, still warm from the day's heat. The ocean stretched endlessly before them, waves rolling in with steady rhythm. It was peaceful. Perfect. Jannie couldn't remember the last time she'd felt this relaxed. Can I ask you something? She said after they'd walked in comfortable silence for a while. Always. When did you know that you had feelings for me, I mean? Gregory was quiet for a moment, and Jannie wondered if she'd overstepped. But then he smiled. 6 months in, he said. The Patterson Project. Remember that? The disaster with the software integration? The very same. We were 3 weeks from launch, and everything was falling apart. The developers were fighting. The client was threatening to pull out. I was ready to admit defeat and cut our losses. Gregory picked up a shell, examined it, tossed it back into the water. And you came into my office at midnight, because of course you were still there at midnight, with printouts and charts and a completely insane idea for salvaging the whole thing. Jannie remembered. She'd been terrified to even suggest it. You told me I was crazy. I did. And then I listened to you explain it. Watched you break down every step, every contingency. Watched you turn an impossible situation into something workable. And when you finished, when you looked at me with those eyes that dared me to say it wouldn't work. He shook his head. I thought, I'm in love with this woman. I'm completely and totally in love with her, and this is going to be a problem. Why a problem? Because you were my employee. Because I was 8 years older. Because you were dating Derek, and I had no right to feel anything beyond professional admiration. He turned to face her, the ocean breeze ruffling his hair. But I did. I felt everything. And for 2.5 years, I've been trying to be professional. Trying to give you space to live your life without my feelings complicating things. Trying to be the boss you deserved instead of the man who was falling more in love with you every single day. This man has been in love with her for 2.5 years. What would you do if someone told you this? How would you feel? Jannie's throat felt tight. I wish I'd known. Would it have changed anything? I don't know, she admitted. Maybe. I was with Derek, and I thought he was what I was supposed to want. Stable. Appropriate. Someone my mother would approve of. Your mother approved of me, Gregory pointed out. After threatening to take you down if you hurt me. A ringing endorsement, really. He reached for her hand, interlacing their fingers. For what it's worth, I think you would have figured it out eventually. That Derek wasn't right for you. That you deserved someone who celebrated your ambition instead of resenting it. Maybe. But it might have taken me years. Jannie looked down at their joined hands. So in a twisted way, Derek dumping me at the altar was actually good? I wouldn't go that far. What he did was cruel and cowardly. But, Gregory pulled her closer. I can't regret the outcome. Is that terrible? Probably. But I can't regret it, either. They stood there as twilight deepened into night, stars beginning to appear overhead. The beach was empty except for them. Private and perfect and theirs. Come here, Gregory said softly. She went, letting him pull her into his arms. He was warm and solid, and when he kissed her, it was different from the kiss at the altar or even the kiss that morning. This kiss was slow, exploratory, like they had all the time in the world to learn each other. Jannie's hands slid up his chest, into his hair, pulling him closer. Gregory made a low sound in the back of his throat, and his arms tightened around her waist, lifting her slightly so she had to go up on her toes. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Gregory rested his forehead against hers. "We should go back," he said, voice rough. "Before I forget, we're supposed to be taking things slow." "Who said anything about taking things slow?" "Jannie." "Gregory." She pulled back enough to meet his eyes. "We're married. We're in love. We're on a private beach with no one around for miles. Why exactly are we taking things slow?" He searched her face. "Because you just got out of a relationship. Because this is all happening so fast. Because I don't want you to wake up tomorrow and regret anything." It was sweet. Protective. So very Gregory. But Jannie was done being cautious. Done second-guessing herself. Done pretending she didn't want exactly what she wanted. "I won't regret it," she said firmly. "And for the record, I've been out of that relationship emotionally for months. Maybe longer. I just didn't realize it until Derek gave me an excuse to leave." "You're sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything." Gregory studied her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he smiled. "Okay then, Mrs. Harris. Let's go home." They practically ran back to the beach house. The next few days passed in a blur of perfect moments. Mornings spent walking on the beach, afternoons lounging on the deck with books neither of them actually read, evenings cooking together in that massive kitchen, which turned out to be hilarious because neither of them was particularly skilled at cooking, but they managed to not burn anything, which Jannie counted as a win. And nights. Nights were for learning each other in ways that made Jannie grateful for the house's privacy. For discovering that Gregory was patient and thorough, and had apparently spent considerable time thinking about all the ways he wanted to touch her. For finding out that she could make him lose his legendary control with just the right touch, the right word. They talked, too. Real conversations about their pasts, their fears, their dreams. Gregory told her about growing up middle class, about his single mother who'd worked 2 jobs to put him through state college, about building his first company in his parents' garage with money borrowed from credit cards and sheer stubborn determination. "My mother died the year I made my first million," he said one evening as they sat on the deck watching the sunset. "Car accident. Some drunk driver ran a red light." His voice was flat, emotionless in the way it got when he was trying not to feel something. "She never got to see what became of that little startup. Never got to stop worrying about money. I just bought her a house. She'd lived in that tiny apartment my whole childhood, and she had 3 months there before the accident." Jannie's heart ached for him. "I'm so sorry. It's why I work so hard," Gregory continued. "Why I push for every advantage, every success. Because I promised her I'd make something of myself, and I ran out of time to show her I'd kept that promise." "She knew," Jannie said softly. "Mothers always know." He pulled her closer, kissing the top of her head. "Tell me about your father. You don't talk about him much." Jannie tensed. It was a subject she usually avoided. "He left when I was 7. Said he needed to find himself, or some other garbage excuse for abandoning his wife and kid. Last I heard, he was living in Texas with his 3rd wife and their kids." "That must have been hard." "It was. Is." She'd never quite gotten past the hurt of her father choosing to leave. "My ma did her best, but there were years when we barely scraped by. I remember being 10 and being embarrassed to bring friends home because our apartment was so small and shabby." "And now?" Gregory asked quietly. "Now I can give her things. Help with her bills. Buy her the house she always wanted." Jannie smiled. "That was my first big purchase when you promoted me to senior assistant last year. Put a down payment on a house for her. She cried for an hour. You're an incredible daughter. I'm her only child. It's the least I could do. Who's been your biggest supporter in life? Drop their name in the comments and show them some love. They fell into an easy rhythm, these conversations that dipped into painful territory but always came back to something light, something that made them laugh. Jannie learned that Gregory had a terrible singing voice but didn't care, that he stress-baked when he couldn't sleep, that he'd read the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy 17 times. Gregory learned that Jannie was terrified of spiders but would kill her own snakes if needed, that she'd wanted to be a marine biologist before student loans made her choose a more practical path, that she could quote entire episodes of The Office verbatim. On their 4th day, they were making breakfast, or rather, Gregory was making breakfast while Jannie sat on the counter offering commentary, when his phone rang. Ignore it, Jannie said. They'd both been ignoring their phones except for quick check-ins with family. But Gregory glanced at the screen and frowned. It's Marcus Chen. From the board. The one whose daughter I tutored? The very same. Gregory answered, putting it on speaker. Marcus. To what do I owe this interruption of my honeymoon? Congratulations, by the way. Marcus's jovial voice filled the kitchen. Though I have to say, I'm hurt you didn't tell your favorite board member you were dating your assistant. It was complicated. I bet. Listen, I won't keep you long. Just wanted to give you a heads up, the board got wind of the marriage. We had an emergency call yesterday. Jannie's stomach dropped. Gregory's expression went very still. And his CEO voice now, professional and controlled. And we voted unanimously to approve. HR's going to draft new relationship disclosure policies, and we're restructuring so Jannie reports to COO instead of directly to you. Kills the power dynamic concerns, keeps her in a position where she can contribute effectively. Everyone wins. Gregory's eyes met Jannie's, surprise and relief warring in his expression. Thank you, Marcus. Don't thank me. Thank your wife. She's made enough allies on this board that when we heard the news, everyone's first reaction was, good for her, rather than fire them both. A pause. She's there, isn't she? I can practically hear her freaking out. I'm not freaking out, Jannie said, though her hands were shaking. I'm processing. Process faster. We need you both back next week sharp and ready to work. The Yamamoto deal is heating up, and apparently nobody can negotiate worth a damn when you two aren't around. He sounded amused. Congratulations again. Don't screw it up, Gregory. I won't, Gregory promised. The line went dead. Jannie stared at the phone, then at Gregory. Did that just happen? I think so. Gregory set the phone down, crossed to where she sat on the counter. You okay? I have a job, Jannie said slowly. I have a job and we're married, and the board approved, and I'm not getting fired, and... Gregory kissed her, cutting off her spiraling. When he pulled back, he was smiling. Breathe, he said. It's good news. It's incredible news. She wrapped her arms around his neck. I was so scared they'd make me choose. Job or you. I would have chosen you, Gregory said simply. For the record. If it came down to Harris Technologies or you, I'd have walked away from the company. You're lying. I'm not. He looked at her seriously. I built that company from nothing. It's my legacy, my life's work. But you, Jannie, you're my future. And the future matters more than the past. She kissed him then, pouring every ounce of love and gratitude and relief into it. When they broke apart, the breakfast was completely forgotten. Bedroom, Gregory suggested, voice rough. Definitely bedroom. They made it approximately 3 steps before Gregory just picked her up, making her squeal with surprise and laughter. He carried her to the bedroom like she weighed nothing, kicking the door shut behind them. Later, much later, they lay tangled in sheets with the ocean breeze drifting through the open windows. We should probably start heading back tomorrow, Gregory said reluctantly. I told Marcus we'd be back next week, and I need to review the Yamamoto files before the meeting. Back to reality, Jannie said. Reality with you as my wife, Gregory corrected. That's not such a bad reality. No, Jannie agreed, snuggling closer. It's really not. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. She ignored it. It buzzed again. And again. Someone really wants to talk to you, Gregory observed. With a sigh, Jannie reached for it. 20 messages from Camille, each one more demanding than the last. She scrolled through them, her expression growing more concerned. What is it? Gregory asked. Derek's telling people the real story, Jannie said quietly. About how he was supposed to be the groom. How we lied about the timeline. Gregory sat up. What? Jannie handed him the phone. On the screen was a screenshot from Derek's social media, a long, rambling post about how he'd been betrayed by the woman he loved, how she'd jumped into bed with her rich boss, how the whole wedding had been a lie. That son of a... Gregory bit off the curse. He dumps you via text and then has the audacity to play the victim? Would you defend your partner publicly if your ex tried to smear you? This is about to get messy. People are going to believe him, Jannie said, anxiety creeping into her voice. People we know. My family, your colleagues. Hey. Gregory took her face in his hands, forcing her to look at him. Listen to me. Derek can say whatever he wants. The people who matter know the truth. Which truth? That we lied about our relationship timeline? That we got married on impulse? That I love you, Gregory interrupted. That you love me. That we're building something real, even if it started in an unconventional way. That's the truth that matters. But, no buts. We'll handle this together. He kissed her forehead. Tomorrow, we'll go back. We'll face whatever comes. And we'll do it side by side. Okay. Jannie nodded, but she couldn't shake the feeling that the bubble of their perfect week was about to burst in spectacular fashion. The drive back to Charleston the next morning felt like heading toward a storm. Jannie kept checking her phone, watching as Derek's post gained traction. Comments ranged from supportive, "You dodged a bullet, man," to skeptical, "Something about this doesn't add up," to outright vicious toward Jannie, "Gold digger. Home wrecker. Using her boss for money." Stop reading those, Gregory said firmly from the driver's seat. He reached over, taking her phone and putting it in the center console. Derek's playing victim because his ego can't handle that you moved on. Let him. People are calling me a gold digger. People who don't know you and whose opinions don't matter. What about the people who do know me? My colleagues? Your business partners? Gregory's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Anyone who actually knows you won't believe Derek's nonsense. And anyone who does believe it isn't worth your time or energy. They pulled up to Jannie's apartment complex. She still needed to get her things, figure out living arrangements. The reality of being married when they'd never even dated was starting to hit home. Come home with me, Gregory said as she started to unbuckle her seatbelt. To my place. We're married. We should be living together. Gregory. I know it's fast. I know we're doing everything backwards. But Jannie, I don't want to drop you off here and go back to my empty house like nothing's changed. Everything's changed. Let me take you home. Let me show you the space that could be ours. The vulnerability in his voice made her decision easy. Okay. But I need clothes. And my laptop. And make a list. We'll come back for everything else later. She packed quickly, clothes, toiletries, work essentials. Her apartment felt strange now, like it belonged to a different person. The woman who lived here had been planning a wedding to Derek. Had been content to be an executive assistant forever. Had been smaller, quieter, more afraid. That woman felt like a stranger. Gregory's house, mansion, really, was in the historic district, a stunning antebellum property that had been meticulously restored. White columns, wraparound porch, the kind of place that belonged in a magazine. You live here? Jannie asked as they pulled through the gates. I know it's a lot. But I grew up in a tiny apartment, always dreaming about having space. Real space. This felt like. He trailed off, looking almost embarrassed. Like proof I'd made it. Inside was even more impressive. High ceilings, original hardwood floors, but somehow it didn't feel stuffy or museum-like. There were personal touches everywhere, photos of Gregory with his mother, books stacked on every available surface, a guitar in the corner that looked well-loved. You play? Jannie asked, pointing to the guitar. Badly. But it helps me think. Gregory set her bags down, ran a hand through his hair. So, this is home. Our home, if you want it to be. Our home. The words settled something in Jannie's chest. I want it to be. Relief flooded his expression. Yeah. Yeah. She looked around the spacious living room, trying to imagine herself here. Though we should probably talk about what happens on Monday. When we go back to work. We tell the truth, Gregory said simply. Not all of it. Derek's dumping you at the altar is nobody's business. But we tell people we developed feelings, decided to act on them, and things moved quickly. That's still editing the truth. It's protecting your privacy, Gregory corrected. There's a difference. You don't owe anyone the painful details. Before Jannie could respond, her phone rang. Her mother. Baby, her mom said without preamble, I've been seeing things online. About Derek. About you and Gregory. What's going on? Jannie closed her eyes. It's complicated, Ma. Then uncomplicate it. Because Derek's mother just called me, crying about how her son's heart was broken by my daughter's betrayal. Oh no. Family drama is the worst kind of drama, isn't it? Derek dumped me, Jannie said, her voice harder than she intended. Via text. On our wedding day. Whatever story he's telling now is revisionist history designed to make himself look better. Silence. Then, that boy dumped you via text? Yes. On your wedding day? 200 guests waiting in the church, yes. A string of very creative curses followed, the kind Jannie's mother usually reserved for people who cut her off in traffic or insulted her cooking. And Gregory? Saved me from humiliation. Offered to step in. I said yes. Because you love him. It wasn't a question, but Jannie answered anyway. Yes. Because I love him. Then that's all I need to know. Her mother's voice was firm now. Derek's mother is going to hear some truth today. And baby. Yeah. Bring Gregory to Sunday dinner. It's time we had a proper conversation about this marriage. The real conversation, not the edited version. The line went dead. Jannie set the phone down and looked at Gregory, who'd clearly heard every word. Your mother is terrifying, he said admiringly. You have no idea. Jannie sank onto the couch. Sunday dinner. You sure you're ready for that? I married you. I can handle your mother's questions. He sat beside her, pulling her close. We're in this together, remember? Together. She was starting to really believe that. The weekend passed in a strange limbo, unpacking Jannie's things, making room for her in Gregory's closet, figuring out how to share space with someone she'd only just started really knowing. They cooked together, watched movies, avoided social media and the growing storm of Derek's narrative. On Sunday, they drove to her mother's house for dinner. Jannie's hands were shaking as they pulled into the driveway. Breathe, Gregory said, echoing advice he'd given her a week ago in the church hallway. It's going to be fine. It wasn't fine. It was intense. Jannie's mother spent the first hour grilling Gregory about everything. His intentions, his business, his family history, his 5-year plan, his 10-year plan, his stance on children and religion, and how he felt about contributing to his community. Gregory answered every question with patience and honesty. Never deflected. Never tried to charm his way out of difficult topics. Just answered. By the time they sat down for dinner, Jannie's mother looked marginally less likely to murder him. All right, she said, setting down her fork. Cards on the table. You two love each other. Yes, they said in unison. This marriage is real? Not some elaborate scheme. It's real, Ma, Jannie said. Maybe it started strangely, but it's real. Her mother looked at Gregory. You understand what you've taken on? My daughter is brilliant, ambitious, and sometimes too stubborn for her own good. She works too hard. She doesn't sleep enough. She'll drive you crazy. I'm counting on it, Gregory said, and there was so much love in his voice that Jannie's eyes started to burn. And you? Her mother turned to Jannie. This man has money. A lot of it. You're sure this isn't about security? About escaping your struggles? I make good money on my own, Ma. I don't need his. But it doesn't hurt, does it? Jannie bristled. If you're asking if I married him for money. I'm asking if you're sure about what you want, her mother interrupted. Because marriage is hard, baby. Even when it starts normally. You two are beginning with complications most couples don't face until years in. I need to know you're ready for that. Jannie reached for Gregory's hand under the table. His fingers interlaced with hers immediately, solid and steady. I'm sure, she said. I've never been more sure of anything. Her mother studied them for a long moment. Then, finally, she smiled. Good. Because I already told Derek's mother exactly where she could stick her opinions about my daughter. Gregory choked on his water. Jannie burst out laughing. Ma. What? The woman had the nerve to call my daughter a gold digger. I wasn't going to let that stand. She stood, starting to clear plates. Now, who wants pie? I made pecan and sweet potato. As they ate dessert and the conversation shifted to lighter topics, Jannie felt something release in her chest. They were going to be okay. Whatever came next, work drama, social media storms, Derek's continued attempts to rewrite history, they would handle it. Together. All right, my amazing viewers. We're at a stopping point, but this story is far from over. Can you believe everything that's happened? We've gone from a wedding disaster to a real marriage, from professional boundaries to passionate love, from humiliation to hope. But there's so much more coming. How will their first day back at work go? What happens when Derek tries to cause more problems? Will Jannie and Gregory's marriage survive the transition from honeymoon bubble to real life? And what about that mysterious comment Gregory made about having been in love with Jannie for almost 3 years? Are there more secrets he's been keeping? Drop a like if you're invested in this story. Subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. And comment below, 1. Team Gregory or Team Derek? Please say Gregory. 2. What would you do in Jannie's position? 3. Where are you watching from? 4. What do you think happens when they go back to work? Thank you so much for being here. To my returning viewers, you're the best. And to new viewers, welcome. You've joined us for the wildest love story I've told in a while. The next parts are going to be explosive, so make sure you're subscribed with notifications on. I'll see you very soon for part 9. Until then, remember, sometimes the worst day of your life leads you exactly where you're supposed to be. Red Heart.